All rise.
May be seated. Are there any preliminary matters before we get started on the state?
No, Your Honor.
No, sir.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you want to go ahead?
Oh, Judge, we would at this point in time move to introduce both binders 1 and 2. We stipulate all the photographs contained in volume 2. I need the weekend to look at volume 3 and look at one thing, but right now the state has moved without objection volume 1 and volume 2, except for the photograph that you've already excluded. So those
Okay,
are both.
so all the exhibits in volume 1 and 2 will be admitted with the exception of those. And those, if I do duplicate photographs, those won't be admitted.
Correct.
Okay? All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Shedden, calling this room. And I think they worked on the electronic stuff, so I think it will work better today.
We have a plan B, Judge. This morning, actually.
Call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Tom Wagner.
Let's come up here, Mr. Wagner. Before you take a seat, let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Go ahead and take a seat.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Yes, my name is Thomas R. Wagner.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I work for the state of New Mexico helping veterans.
Did you have previous employment before that?
Yes, I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs for about 40 years.
And Mr. Wagner, where do you live? In other words, what city do you live in?
I live in Rio Rancho.
Do you recall last Memorial Day, May 25th of 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall whether you were doing anything special on that day?
Yes, I was. I was going to the store at Albertsons.
Okay. Was there any particular reason you were going to the store?
Yes, my grandson wanted some cereal, so we were out of milk.
Okay. How far away do you live from Albertsons?
About a mile and a half.
Judge, I'm just moving around to put the exhibit up. Oops, there we go. I think it's about even. Do you recall approximately where you were parked when you went into the parking lot of Albertsons?
Yes, I do. I was parked on the south entrance of Albertsons on that parking road facing south.
Okay. Your Honor, could the witness please step down from the witness stand?
You may.
Okay. Mr. Wagner,
Your Honor,
Sure.
Mr. Wagner, if you would, first take a second to orient yourself to the map. Do you recognize in general what that depicts?
Yes, that's the parking and the shopping center where Albertsons is.
If you could, sir, if you could take this green marker and just draw a rectangle approximately where you were parked when you arrived at the parking lot.
Yes, I was parked approximately right about here.
Okay. Could you just make because I'm going to ask you to put your initials in there. So if you could just make a rectangle.
Okay.
Okay, and then just put your initials by that. Okay. And when you were there, you got out of the car and then you went into Albertsons?
Yes.
Before you went into Albertsons, did you observe, was there anything that caught your attention?
Yes, it was. As I was leaving out of my car going into, I did notice that there was a police car with the lights on that was behind the vehicle right by Arby's.
Okay, and it looks, for the record, like you're pointing to the red hash marks on the diagram
Yes, ma'am.
that are marked Arby's approximate location of traffic stop, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So after you came back out from Arby's, was the
excuse me. Sorry about that.
before let me back up. Before you left your vehicle and went into Albertsons, what, if anything, did you notice happening between the vehicle that was pulled over and the officer's vehicle?
When I pulled in, I observed, I did see an officer that appeared to be talking to somebody in the driver's side of the vehicle.
Okay. And could you hear any conversation at all?
Not clearly.
Okay. Could you hear voices?
I heard voices, but I could not distinguish.
Okay. Could you tell whether they were male or female voices?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So after you saw that, then you went into the Albertsons?
Yes.
After you came back out from the Albertsons, was the vehicle that was pulled over and the officer's vehicle still there?
Yes, they were.
Okay, and did you notice what was happening at that point?
I did see the officer still talking to somebody on the driver's side of the vehicle.
Okay. And did you ever see the driver, or excuse me, the officer move from that location?
No, it was pretty much talking to the person.
And at that point, what did you do at that point?
Well, I went in, I started to go into my car to
Mhm.
get ready, and I began to leave going this way. And at that time, as I was approaching, the vehicle in front of the officer just sped away.
Okay. And when you saw that, where was your attention focused?
Primarily, I was about halfway, right about here. I was focused primarily to the scene.
Mhm.
And when it sped away, the officer, went to his vehicle.
Okay. And then what did the officer do after he got in his vehicle?
He went after the car.
Okay. At that point, did you start? I mean, did you leave the parking lot as well?
Yes, I did. I followed pretty much. I went this way, and as the cars were speeding, I was following behind them.
Okay. And you said the cars were speeding. What do you mean by that?
Well, the car went pretty fast, and as soon as the officer went into his car, he pursued after them, and they were going pretty fast.
Now, were you following them, Mr. Wagner?
Not at a distance, yes, it was.
Okay. And when I say were you following them, was that the direction you were going anyway, or was your intent to follow them?
No, because my direction is usually I leave here and go towards a pine tree to my house.
Okay. And so, at some point before you left the parking lot, did you have occasion to stop your vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And why did you stop your vehicle?
As I was approaching, I was about Arthur Miller Dance Studios right at the end here.
Mhm.
As I was just, barely passing that, I heard some shots.
Okay. Is that when you stopped your vehicle?
No, I heard some shots, and I pursued and quickly towards the officer's vehicle.
Okay. So if you could first just put maybe a circle where you say you heard the shots,
Right here.
and then put your initials inside there. And then also, could you indicate with a rectangle where your vehicle, approximately where you stopped your vehicle and got out?
I stopped my vehicle right here. It's a billboard that tells what stores are in the shopping center.
Okay, so you were right by that billboard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can go ahead and get back on the witness stand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do you have an exhibit binder up there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you turn to exhibits 24 and 29, please? Let me know when you found them.
Are they numbered behind?
24 and 29.
Okay. I have exhibit 24.
Okay. Okay. Let's take a look at exhibit 24 first.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 25. 25. 25 first. We could have the monitors on, Judge.
Folks, are your monitors on?
I know there's a little bit of glare there, but do you see the sign that's there next to the exit?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the sign you were talking about?
Yes.
So where was your vehicle in relation to that?
I was parked at there's a light post, just right to the left of the light post behind the sign.
Okay. And you see Officer Benner's vehicle there. Is that how you recall Officer Benner's vehicle when you approached or when
Yes,
you got
ma'am.
out of your car?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you approached the vehicle, or when you approached the scene, what did you do?
As I approached it, after I heard the shots, I saw the officer kind of go forward, and he fell on the street.
Okay. Did you hear anything before the officer fell?
No, just prior to that, the shots.
How close in time after you heard the shots was it before you saw Officer Benner fall?
I'd say distance when I heard the shots, I was probably about 3 or 4 car lengths behind the police car.
Uh-huh.
And then as I sped up when I heard that, I'd say I was about probably or car and a half length as I was going to park.
Could you please turn to Exhibit 29?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, could you, where's the point? Because you can't mark on your screen there, but I have a, if you could just turn around and show with the laser pointer. Try it.
Why don't you try it here? Why don't you try marking on your screen?
See if it works.
Oh, here?
They said it wasn't going to work, but
No, it doesn't, sir.
no, it's not working. I don't think this is going to show. Doesn't really show up very well. Oh, that's weird. You can see it up there. See it everywhere except on the picture. Well, take my pen then, and if what I want to ask you, sir, is did you see the officer out of the vehicle, out of his vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Can you show by pointing with the pen approximately where you saw Officer Benner fall?
You know, Ms. Bowman, you know the better thing to do is, why don't you have them come to
Oh, that's right, he could do it here.
That way they can see on their screen where he's parking.
Thank you,
It'd be a lot
Judge.
better.
That's why he gets to wear the robe now. Over here, sir.
And you could take the chart down.
Yeah.
Okay. 9.8.
There you go.
Use the
Yeah.
pointy side.
Pointy side.
Yeah, I think it'll be there.
Okay.
Okay, so where was the officer when you saw him fall?
I saw him right, I think it, parallel or in front of the door.
Okay. And could you see what direction he was facing?
No, not clearly. There was an angle, to that.
Okay. And could you see the other vehicle? How clearly could you see? Well, could you see the other vehicle?
No, I didn't at that time. I did not see it.
Did you ever see the other vehicle?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Other than,
Other than?
when the vehicle sped away. I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But at the time when you heard the shots and you heard Officer Benner fall, you didn't notice what was happening with the Durango, the
No.
car in front?
No, ma'am.
Did you at any point see anyone get out of the Durango that had been stopped?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay, I think you can safely take your seat back again, hopefully. Thank you, Your Honor, for helping me with that. So, when you went to, you said, I think you just said that you saw the vehicle speed away.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do next?
Well, I was, as I was approaching to help the officer that was on the street, on the ground, the vehicle did sped away. I did look up, and it was headed towards Southern,
Okay.
going south.
Were you able to see anyone inside the vehicle?
No, ma'am.
At that point, or at any point that night, did you ever see anyone else that had gotten out of the vehicle?
Yes, I did. Afterwards, while we were assisting the officer that was on the ground, there was a lady that was milling around the curve in front of the officer's car.
Okay. And did you have any conversations with her at all?
Other than she kept saying that she was hurt, and we had told, me and some other people that were helping the officer, just told her to sit on the curb. We're trying to help the officer.
Did you see how she got out of the vehicle, or if she got out of the vehicle?
No, I didn't.
So did you even know where she came from?
No, not really.
Okay. So, at that point, what did you do with regards to your assistance at the scene?
Well, when I approached the officer, there was also another person that was applying CPR, and I tried to help him at that time. She had a cell phone, and she was applying first aid to the officer, and she handed me the cell phone and said, talk to the dispatcher, which I did.
And did you stay there? Well, how long did you stay there at the scene?
I stayed there until pretty long after the police came and the assistants and all that, and police officer had told us to stay in the parking lot, that he wanted to talk to us.
And did you get a statement there at the scene?
Yes, I did. Verbal statement.
Now, do you have some prior experience with treating people who have been shot, dealing with trauma by shooting, I should say?
Yes, I have.
And where was that experience?
I was in the military. I spent a year in Vietnam, and during that period of time, I saw my fair share of wounded and soldiers.
So when you saw Officer Benner, in your mind, did you have any opinion about his likelihood of surviving?
No, that look I've seen so many times when I was in Nam, and I didn't think he was going to make it.
Thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
Any questions?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
So as you said a moment ago, during your time in Vietnam and Southeast Asia, you saw plenty of dead and dying, right?
Yes, sir.
And your only involvement in this case was you happened to be here at this time, and you immediately rushed to offer aid, did you not?
I'm sorry?
You immediately rushed in this situation to offer whatever aid you could, right?
Yes, sir.
You ran toward the problem rather than running away from it, did
Yes,
you
sir.
not? And as you're trying to assist this dying officer, and during the commotion involving trying to save the officer, you observed this woman milling around on the curb, right?
Yes, sir.
And while you and others were trying to save the officer, it's my understanding that she was complaining about needing help herself, right?
Yes.
And she didn't appear to be in any real distress that you could see, right?
No.
And like you said, you've seen plenty of people with gunshot wounds, right?
Yes, sir.
Varying levels of trauma from slightly wounded to gravely ill, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the woman sitting on the curb that you told to sit on the curb, in your opinion, just like you offered an opinion a moment ago that Officer Benner wasn't going to make it, she appeared to be fine, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
But her focus did not appear to be on Officer Benner. It appeared to be on herself, did it not?
That's what I surmised. Yes.
And she kept complaining and complaining about, I need help, oh pitiful me, while Officer Benner's laying there dying, and you're doing your dadgum best to help try to save him, right?
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. I appreciate your testimony.
Can you direct?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, can Mr. Wagner be permanently excused?
As far as the state is concerned, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Did you
Oh,
send-
no, sir, he can be excused.
Okay, Mr. Wagner, you're excused. You're welcome to stay in the courtroom, or you may leave.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness.
State calls Jordan, please.
Okay. Gordon Keys. Good morning, Mr. Keys. Please take a seat. Let me swear you. Raise your right hand, please.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the penalty of law?
Yes, sir.
Take a seat.
Thank you.
So, Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure. Jordan Keys, that's Keys.
And Jordan, what city do you live in?
Rio Rancho.
How long have you lived there?
About 7 years.
Are you familiar with Country Club Plaza?
Yes.
Okay. And how often do you visit that?
Previously, pretty frequently. Recently, there was an Albertsons there that closed within the past year, so not as frequently anymore.
How close to that parking lot or to that shopping center is your house?
Half a mile to a mile. Not long at all.
Do you recall Memorial Day last year, May 25th, 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you and your family do anything special that day?
We came back from a weekend camping at Elephant View and drove home. When we got home, my daughter she was not able to stay up late enough to have s'mores, so I went to the grocery store that night to go buy the things to make s'mores when we got home.
Okay. So when you went to when you got to the parking lot, do you recall approximately where you parked?
Yeah, I parked near, it would be, I'm trying to think of what direction that would be. That would be the west entrance of Albertsons, close to Arby's.
With the court's permission, I'd like you to step down, and I'd like you to, first of all, take a second to orient yourself to this diagram,
Okay.
which is State's Exhibit 392. Do you recognize in general what that portrays?
Yes, this is the parking lot near Albertsons.
Okay. And if you would, take this red marker and draw like a rectangle to depict your car, or your vehicle, I should say, and approximately where you were parked when you went to Albertsons that day.
Okay. I parked approximately right here.
Okay. And then just, could you put your initials somewhere
Sure.
by that? Okay. And at some point, did you ever get inside the store?
No, I did not.
Why is that?
I got out of my vehicle, I started to walk inside, and I patted my back pockets and realized I didn't have my wallet.
Okay. So you didn't even get to the store?
No, I probably got to about where this white car is here on this picture and turned back by that distance, so not far at all.
When you first parked, and when you first parked and got out, at that point, did you notice anything unusual that caught your attention?
Yeah. The officer had made a traffic stop here, it looked like. There was a Durango that was stopped right here, and the officer's SUV was parked right here, and he was on the driver's side of the vehicle speaking to them when I stopped.
And for the record, you're pointing to the red hash marks that indicate RV's approximate location of traffic stop? What direction was your vehicle facing in relation to where the traffic stop was?
If I looked out my driver's side window, I would be able to see the traffic stop. So
Okay.
I was able to see the incident.
Were there any obstructions between you and?
I was in a truck, so no, there's no vehicles that were larger than mine.
Now, where was the officer in relation to the car that was pulled over?
When I initially came, he was on the driver's side. When I turned around and walked back to my vehicle, he was on the passenger side of the vehicle.
And did you say you heard any conversation going on?
I only heard him yelling at the vehicle as the vehicle started to speed off. He yelled something along the lines of, "No, stop, don't," something along the lines. I can't tell you specifically what it was, but I think it was very similar to that.
Okay. Now, when you say you had forgotten your wallet, did you forget your wallet at home or was it in your truck?
It was at home.
Okay. So, did you get back in your car at some point, or your truck at some point and start to go home?
Yes. After I saw the vehicle, or I saw the Durango take off and I saw the SUV follow it, Shortly after that, I was getting in my vehicle as that happened, and the way that I go home was in the same direction that they left.
Okay. And did you observe the vehicle that was being pursued as it sped off?
Yes, I did.
And what, if anything, did you note about that when it took off?
What I saw is that when they sped off, there was a minivan that was approximately right here near these parking spots next to the RVs, and they swerved around it at a very high rate of speed. They came through the parking lot through here and drove off this way. It was in this vicinity is when I lost sight of it.
Okay. And why did you lose sight of it?
It was going at such a fast rate of speed where I was parked at, and I was pulling out of my parking spot. I just couldn't see it any longer.
Okay. Now you said that's the way you normally would have left anyway, correct?
That's correct.
So did you continue to leave the parking lot, or did something stop you?
Yes, I did continue to drive in the same direction that they left. I got over to about right here near the exit, and I noticed as I was coming up there that the Durango was stopped over here. The police officer's SUV was stopped in this region, and I saw at that point, as I was coming up, the officer falling backwards. I saw the SUV go speeding off down what would be Pine Tree Road.
Okay, Mr. Keith, if you could, again, with the marker,
Sure.
make a triangle that depicts where you stopped your
Sure.
vehicle.
Would you like me to initial that?
Yes, please. Okay. Just 1 second. At some point, you got out of your truck.
Yes.
What did you do when you got out of your truck?
I ran over to the scene to see if there was anything that I could do to assist. When I got over there, there were 2 people that identified themselves as nurses trying to help the officer. There was a woman sitting on the corner, approximately right here, and I stood next to her, and she told me that she had been shot.
Okay, I'm going to just
Sure.
interrupt you for a second. Take this down. I'm going to show you what's been previously entered as State's Exhibits 29. And if you could come over this way,
Certainly.
Jordan, or excuse me, Mr. Keys. Now, to the best of your recollection, I don't want you to mark on it, but you could just use this pen and point. To the best of your recollection, can you point to, first of all, where you saw Officer Benner
Yes.
fall?
He was right in this region right here.
Okay. And do you recall, in relation to the car that you saw speed off, do you remember how close he was to that car?
He seemed very close to it. He seemed close to the driver's side rear passenger window.
Okay. And did you ever notice anyone get out of that car?
I did not see anyone exit the car.
Okay. At some point, did someone other than the people who were assisting Officer Benner, you said somebody did try to talk to you?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know where that lady came from?
She told me that they had stolen her car and that there were 2 people that stole her vehicle.
Did she name any names?
She did not give any names.
Okay. So, other than that, I mean, but you didn't see her come out of the car?
I did not see her.
Where was she when you first made contact with her?
She was approximately right here.
Was she standing or sitting?
She was sitting on the curb. She said she'd been shot and that she was in a lot of pain.
Okay. Did she ask you to do anything for her?
She did ask me to use my cell phone. She'd asked me as well to get her purse from the street, which had been, would you like me to show where
Yes,
that was?
please.
It was located right in this region right here. next to what looked like a console from the vehicle. She asked me to get the purse. I went and got it for her and took it over to her. She pulled her phone out of it and the screen was shattered. She was trying to make a phone call on it. She was having difficulty with it and asked me if she could call her mother from my phone. So I did let her use my phone. She tried to make a phone call. I don't think she reached anyone.
Okay. Other than, well, what efforts were you able to give, if any, to assist in the aid, rendering aid to Officer Benner?
There was not much I could do. One of the nurses was looking for a tourniquet.
If you face the jury, I think
Sure.
I can hear you better.
One of the nurses was looking for a tourniquet. I tried to help him find that. At that time, the other officers had arrived on the scene. So at that point, I went back by the woman.
And before you left the scene, were you asked to give a statement to any of the officers?
Yes, I did give a statement to, I believe it was Officer Sanchez and Officer Gwynn, I believe was the other officer.
Okay, thank you. You can go back up to the witness stand. One moment, Your Honor. When the young lady told you she had been shot, did you notice that she had did you see any signs that she had gotten shot, or did she just tell you?
I didn't really see a sign that she'd been shot. She was holding her leg or her ankle near her foot and was complaining of being in a lot of pain. I can't recall seeing anything specifically though.
Okay. Where was your attention mainly focused that night?
It was mainly focused on the officer. I did try to talk to her as she talked to me a little bit, but I told her, the officer was obviously in a lot of worse situation and that they needed to really focus on him first.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Keys.
Good morning.
You would describe this scene generally as pretty chaotic, right?
There was a lot going on, yes.
A lot of people running, right?
Not really. A lot of people running. Most people were trying to assist where they could. When the officers arrived, there was a little more movement at that point, but before that, it was pretty centralized.
And everybody was basically coming to the aid of Officer Benner while you were there, right?
For the most part, yes.
Because he was laying on the ground, bleeding, and in serious condition, right?
Correct.
And so you, along with other bystanders, including these two nurses, were doing everything they could possibly do to save this man.
Yes, the nurses primarily. Unfortunately, I don't have any medical training, so I mainly stood by the corner, just because I didn't want to get anybody's way.
Right. And you stood by just in case they needed something, you were available to help, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's why you hung out there.
Yeah, and also to give a statement when the officers did come. Since I saw the initial traffic stop, I wanted to make sure that I was there and available.
And because that was because you were concerned about Officer Benner's safety, right?
I was concerned about everyone's safety. Obviously, at that point, that was a very dangerous situation for anyone.
And you wanted to make sure you provided information to the officers in investigating this case as well.
I wanted to provide the information that I saw.
Right. And in fact, while this was all going on and there were civilians and nurses trying to help Officer Benner as he was dying in the street, Tabitha was distracting you, talking about what happened to her.
She was talking to me. I can't say she was really distracting me that much. I was able to focus, but yes, she was speaking to me.
And she was talking to other people at the scene too, wasn't she?
Not really.
Okay. And you recall that Tabitha, or the woman there, described that when her car was stolen, there were two people, like you just testified to.
Yes, she said that there were two people in the vehicle. I did not see anyone in the vehicle, but she said there were two.
And she said that there was a woman in the vehicle that was
No,
stolen.
she did not.
Okay. Do you recall giving an interview to police officers shortly after this incident?
I do recall.
And when you gave that interview to police officers, you understood it was important to give them all the information that you recall from this incident, right?
Yes, to the best of my memory.
And you gave this statement to law enforcement pretty shortly after this all took place, right?
I believe so, yes. Within probably an hour and a half.
And an hour and a half from the incident?
I believe so.
And you recall that they were recording your statement so that they could
Yes,
remember what you had to say? And do you recall telling law enforcement during this interview that the woman by the curb, Miss Tabitha Littles, told you that her foot really hurts, and she said there was another woman in the car?
I don't recall that.
Would you like to see a transcript of your statement?
It's fine.
I'm looking at page 4. Lines 22 through 23 on the page 5. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? All right, Mr. Keys, don't read it out loud. Just read it to yourself, and then you can testify. Starting here.
Okay.
Okay. So would you agree, Mr. Keys, that when you talked to law enforcement shortly after this incident, you stated that there was another woman in the car?
Yes. I may have forgot the details between then and now, to the best of my memory.
And that's why we do this. So at this point, you recall stating that. Is that right? Or at least that's what the transcript says?
I believe so. If the transcript says it, I'm sure that's what I said.
And you have no reason to disbelieve that this is accurate, right?
No.
And so, just so I'm clear on your testimony, when you were describing this woman, Miss Littles, by the curb, it was just you and other civilians and these nurses that were present initially, right?
That's correct.
And when Miss Littles was telling you that her foot hurt and that she was shot, there was no law enforcement other than Mr. Benner present, right?
No, not at that immediate time. While she was talking to me, the law enforcement did start to show.
And you would agree that during this time period that Miss Littles is talking about being shot and being carjacked by two people, that these nurses and other people are doing CPR on Mr. Benner?
They were doing their best to help her, or help him, excuse me.
And that included CPR and trying to figure out where he was bleeding from and taking off his clothing and all those sorts of things, right?
Trying to assist him to the best of their ability, yes.
And Miss Littles asked you for her phone.
She asked me for her purse.
And then she took out her phone.
Right.
And she's making phone calls.
She did attempt to make a phone call. She was very, very distraught. She asked to use my phone after due to her cracked screen.
And so my question is, though, is while all these life-saving attempts are going on with Officer Benner, Miss Littles is making phone calls. Is that right?
Yes, she attempted to make a phone call.
Pass the witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Can we release Mr. Keys? Can we release him?
As far as the states, yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Keys, you're going to walk in the stand and call him, or you're walking to release whatever you'd like to do.
Thank you, sir.
Say, call your name, please.
State calls Mark Bentowski.
Morning, come on. And before you take a seat, I need to swear you in. So raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of law.
Yes, I do.
Take a seat.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Mark Allen Bentowski.
And what do you do for a living now, sir?
Well, I'm in the middle of a transition currently, but I'm retired 20 years of law enforcement with the military. Then went to work with Clearwater Police Department down in Clearwater, Florida. And I'm now transitioning to a better paying job as a recycling plant operations manager.
So you were in which branch of the military?
The Air Force.
And when you say law enforcement, do you mean you were like It's not military police, it's not shore patrol, what do they call it in the Air Force?
Security forces.
Security forces.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you did that for 20 years and you got out.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you retired, did you previously live in Rio Rancho?
I did.
What neighborhood did you live in? What city did you live in?
Rio Rancho.
Do you recall last Memorial Day of 2015, May 25th?
I do.
And did you do anything special that day with your family?
Yes, well, it's special being I not have to work that day, which is a good thing. And I spent time with my son. We were actually in the driveway. I was teaching my son how to use a welder.
And while you were in your driveway, about what time was that? Do you recall?
I don't recall, no.
Was it in the afternoon? Was it after, I mean, not in the afternoon, was it afternoon time?
I believe so, yes.
Was it still light outside?
It was.
Okay. And while you were in your driveway, did anything occur that caught your attention?
Yes, ma'am. While I was discussing with my son, like the parts of the welder, we haven't even started to actually do any welding yet. I heard gunshots that were fired. And then, of course, immediately called 911.
How many gunshots did you hear?
The initial gunshots I heard was, there were like 4 consecutive gunshots. It was like boom, 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 boom. And then there was a slight pause. And then there was another one single last shot after that slight pause. So it was like boom, 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 slight pause, and then there was a boom. So I called 911 immediately after that.
And as your previous employment as security forces, were you trained and to be familiar with the sounds of gunshots?
Yes, ma'am. I've been on 13 deployments and deployed all over the world. So I know what it's like to have be shot at, 1, and 2, I know what, and also as a law enforcement officer, we're trained in shotgun, pistol, and of course a rifle. So I know exactly what all of those sound like independently of one another, and the other higher caliber weapons too as well. And the noise that I heard, I even told dispatch when I called them, I let them know that it was a small caliber, like semi-automatic type pistol. In other words, it wasn't an automatic, it wasn't a rifle, and it wasn't a shotgun. I let them know that it was a pistol. Because from my training and experience, I knew that it was a small caliber. When I say small caliber, it wasn't a rifle round.
Mr. Bentowski, if you could, there's a binder in front of you, and if you could, there's your number exhibits. If you could turn to exhibits 136 and 137, please.
Kind of sticking here, but okay, I'm at 136.
Okay. Do you recognize what that depicts?
Yes, ma'am. It depicts it's a map of the area where I live.
Okay, and that dot, it has an address there of 1002 37th Street Southeast. What is that address?
That's my home address.
Where you lived at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then if you could turn to 130, or excuse me, look at 137, please.
Yes, ma'am. Same
And
thing.
That's just, that would be the satellite view then of the same thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Approximately, can you see on there approximately how close to the Pine Tree and Southern area where that post office is? About how far away is your house from that?
It's 3 blocks.
About 3 blocks?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
No questions, Your Honor?
May he be released permanent?
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir.
Bentowski, you may be excused to walk in the stand and courtroom, or you may leave.
Thank you, Your Honor.
rise.
You know what, we still don't have Kleenex. No Kleenex, we still don't have Kleenex.
Well, I had put some here.
I'm sorry.